What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA Show, powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with 150 in bonus bets when you win your first bet of $5. Bet at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler. Another night in the association that delivered some drama, some storylines, plus the NBA Cup we're going to break down. Legs, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. Couple good games and some interesting storylines going on out there right now that we got to get into, particularly one on the West Coast that I think we're going to have to share our thoughts on right now because things are not going well in Lakerland. We'll get into that first, though. Let's focus on the positive. All right, let's focus on the positive to start. It's Thursday. We only got 2 shows left this week. Let's finish off the week by with a positive note here to start the show. Atlanta, Milwaukee last night, 2 teams, playing pretty good basketball coming in. Yeah. That's going to be our focus to start.
Absolutely. You're such a positive guy, Legs. I love it. You're like, let's put the negativity, let's sandwich that. We're also going to talk NBA Cup, which I'm excited to because we have some good questions about that, what that opportunity brings for the 8 teams involved. I think there's a great storyline to all 8 of them. So we'll get into that at the end of the show. But yes, we got to start with the Hawks. A great story. Actually, the Hawks, excuse me. With my Atlanta Hawks getting the win over the Milwaukee Bucks, 2 teams that were coming in on a streak. One team continues that streak to 5 games, and that's the Atlanta Hawks, 119-104. You got big performances again from Jalen Johnson. You actually got a huge performance from Deandre Hunter, which is nice, 20 points for him, 5 rebounds, 3 steals. And they just look good, man. This team was a team that has had some injuries, had some ups and downs, but I kind of feel like they are they're a good, second or third tier team, and they're starting to put it together. What did you see in this game that impressed you?
First of all, I think looking at Atlanta and the sort of similar sized guys that they have out there defensively, and they caused Milwaukee all kinds of problems. They this game really, they got separation because of their ability to create turnovers, get out and convert in the open floor. That's really when this game got away from Milwaukee, and they made a couple of runs to make it somewhat interesting in the second half. But eventually, the lead was too big at one point, and they couldn't cut into it all the way. But I thought watching their defense, their length, their reach, their activity with their hands while they were sliding their feet, I was just very impressed with the problems they were causing Milwaukee and just running their offense. If Milwaukee was able to get out and get some early attacks by Giannis or early ball screens out of Lillard, they were fine. Their offense looked good because they got a lot of firepower. They've got shooting. They've got 2 dominant players. When they had to play half-court basketball, that's when they really struggled against Atlanta's team. And it just impressed me with watching them. I've watched bits and pieces of the Hawks all year. Yeah, I watched this game from start to finish, every play, focusing on every player and taking notes, and really wanted to dive in because they've had some incredibly marquee wins, right? They're beating really good teams. So it's like, okay, let's find out what's going on with the Atlanta Hawks, sit down and really dive into them. And I was very impressed, not only with their defense, I was impressed with, they have a pretty cool style offensively with these weak side slashes into the lane, and the way that they move the ball, you turn your head, someone's cutting behind you into the paint. And they had a number of guys that can do that. So both ends of the floor, Atlanta, I thought, thoroughly outplayed the Bucks, who have been red hot. Yeah. And Atlanta gets, I think, another notch in their belt with a win against a very good team and a team that's been playing their best basketball over the last 2 weeks.
Absolutely, man. And I love that you mentioned their interesting style, because that's what stands out to me. I love teams that have skilled players. And, Dyson Daniels, I've talked about him. I think he's obviously defensively, we all know what he does, but he's a good continuity player. He understands, he reads the court well. Jalen Johnson is just this jack of all trades. We're going to talk about him. Obviously, Trae Young can pass the ball. I think Risa Shea is more advanced in terms of just understanding the way the game is played than most rookies. He's got a good feel for the game. So they just have all these guys, obviously Bogdanovich. They have all these guys that can do a lot of different things. And when you talk about the style, here's the thing that stands out to me. The inverted pick and roll between Jalen Johnson and Trae Young, it's kind of a sneaky great weapon for that team right now. Like an inverted 1-4. Jalen Johnson handles the ball. Trae Young, the smallest guy in the NBA, is the screener. And last night they were able to get the switches they wanted, get Giannis out onto Trae Young. Jalen Johnson could attack. I think they ran it 5 or 6 times and scored on all but the last time that they ran it. It's a really deadly action, but I like it because it's weird. It's unique. It's the new NBA where it's like, okay, this isn't traditional, but how do we make it work? And I just think that action is something that, it's growing. They're using it more and more, and it's something that I think can actually be a real weapon for them.
It's a tough action no matter who runs it in the league. Not everybody has the personnel to have someone that's long enough that if they get that switch, it's good enough ball handler with that kind of length and then can get the switch and do something with it against a smaller guy. Jalen Johnson can do that. And he, to me, in watching this, what stood out to me the most about him is just, you talk about smooth. I mean, this is one of the smoothest players in the league. Everything he does is he just glides. It's super effortless. His stride is easy. His motions never seem rushed, but he's one of the best athletes on the floor at all times, but it never seems like he's going full speed. And there's just something about him that sort of your eyes are drawn to him in the way that he plays. And look at the first 4 years of his career, and he's exploding right now. He's still only 22 years old, man.
Young,
His scoring average has gone from basically 2 as a rookie to 6 to 16, and now he's over 20. He also gives you almost 9 boards a game. He's a disruptive defender. The sky is the limit for Jalen Johnson, and he was one of the guys you and I talked about earlier this week when we were talking about top guys under 25 who we would like to have. Super intriguing. And look, we put together our list, and we've said who, like outside right now of like the top 10, in that 15 to 25 range, you could see making that leap into the top 10. And both of us had Jalen Johnson on the tip of our tongues for a reason. He's just an effortless playmaker and with explosive, crazy athletic ability. He was, to me, the most impressive player on the floor, but he wasn't the only one. I thought Khris Middleton played really well. Dyson Daniels played well. Bogdanovich came in, gave them a huge spark that helped them get that separation with a huge second quarter. So Atlanta, to me, impressive. You look at them. If I didn't know their record and I watched them last night, I think this is a team, 12-11, I believe.
Yeah.
I think maybe this team's like 15-8 or something when you watch them last night. But it's not the case. And that's why they've had a very strange year, but they have beaten good teams. And last night, they put it all together, and you saw why. And they've won 5 games in a row. So they're red hot as we head into the Emirates Cup, which we're going to be talking about later.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jalen Johnson here. First of all, you mentioned his athleticism because he does glide. Some athletes, he almost reminds me of Wilson Chandler in that way. Wilson Chandler was a really great athlete, but he never seemed like he was sprinting. Everything was kind of smooth, and then all of a sudden he'd rise up. They ran that inverted pick and roll. I think it was third quarter. They run that inverted pick and roll. It's like one dribble through the lane. And it was almost a Tom Chambers-like dunk where he goes up and gets elevation. It almost feels like the defense propped him up even higher. And it was an incredible dunk. He's a phenomenal athlete. You said, you kind of referenced maybe some star potential. I can't figure out if he's almost like in the Franz Wagner caliber prospect where you go, is he a star or is he a super connector type guy? But you're almost hinting that you think he is a star or a star in the making.
I think he's headed there. I really do. I think the only thing that's really going to be left for him is probably continuing to extend his ability to score off the dribble and particularly shoot the ball from deep off the dribble. That's just not something he does a lot of. He'll take threes. And he's taken, 4.5 a game. That's a pretty good number, for a wing in this league. He's not afraid to take them. He shoots a low percentage, and I don't think he really is able to get those off the dribble where you could possibly put him in a ball screen or put him in an isolation, and he's going to go to like a step back and create separation and shoot the ball, like a Luka or like a Kevin Durant or guys that rely on that shot. Anthony Edwards. I think there's a lot of potential there to add that. You might see his 3-point attempts go up to 6 or 7 a game over the next couple of years, and where he's making 2 or 3 of those a night, and some nights maybe goes off. Right now, that's not really a shot in his wheelhouse. He's going to do more of the slashing, finish the stuff around the basket, take shots that he's capable of making, and if he gets an open three, he'll take that. I think there's a lot more there for him when he masters the ability to manipulate the basketball and now have a counter move to a defender that cuts off his first one. That's the next piece for him. And the fact that he's 22 and he's taking these kinds of strides, from a 2-point score as a rookie to 20, this fast at age 22, that tells me that I do think he's a guy that can get that scoring average up into the 23, 24, maybe 25-point range over the next couple of years. Like, I believe that. And by the way, I also think part of the reason he's excelling right now to that extent, I love this version of Trae Young. Give me this version of Trae Young, because I've never been a big believer. Trae Young averaging 27, 30 points a game and shooting the ball 20, 25 times a night is a formula for any sort of real success in this league. He's small guards that shoot that much. That's not a winning formula. When you mix in his playmaking, because he's an elite level passer playmaker, and you make that more of his focus, knowing that he can go off at any time if he needs to as a scorer. I love watching this version of Trae Young. Now, he's never going to give you a lot defensively. That's okay. He was so good offensively, but not as a 30-point scorer. I like Trae Young when he's getting you around 20 and he's facilitating into double-digit mark and making all of these guys better, because he does attract a lot of attention because of his shooting range. You have to extend your defense out, and that should make the game easier for him as a passer. And right now, that's what he's doing. And I've been really enjoying watching Trae Young play this year, probably more than any year of his career.
I love that you brought this up, because I 100% agree. He's a guy that can be frustrating. Neither of us really love the heliocentric style of basketball outside of a handful of guys, obviously, or Lukas and guys of that caliber. But Trae Young seems to enjoy this team in a way that he's willing to sacrifice the shots. Look, he still led the team at 19 attempts. He went 16 of 19. But it almost feels more like he's not hunting his shot. He's running an offense. He's working. And the fact that he's screening, I mean, little guys in the NBA don't love screening because it's really physical. It takes a lot out of you. It's a hard thing. It's quite a sacrifice to get your small guards to be screeners, but he just seems to be more willing to be off ball, more willing to do those types of things. And I think it's because he's on a team that has a bunch of guys that can play make. I mean, Dyson Daniels is a point guard, a combo guard, but point guard. He can pass. They've got all these different guys. And for large portions of this game, it was Jalen Johnson's team to run almost. It was almost like Trae was playing off of him and letting him go. And I agree with you, man. Trae's a great player, but it can be tough when he's the center of everything. When he spreads it around a little bit more, I feel like all of his talent shines. So I agree with you, man. I like the way he's playing this year.
Yeah, and look, I think 4 times in his career, he's averaged either 19 or 20 shots a game, field goal attempts, and free throws up in that 7, 8, 9 range. So the combination of the two tells you the guy's just constantly looking for his own offense. His shot attempts this year down to 16. His free throws are down 2. So it just tells you in general, the way that he's playing the game, the way that he's seeing the floor, it's to me makes them harder to guard, because these young, talented, athletic wings with all this length, this should be a point guard's dream, to be able to use your penetration skills, use your ability to draw people out from the basket, draw two. It makes the game easier when you have this many options with slashers and cutters and athletes, and they're really good in transition when they change ends of the floor after a turnover. That should be how Trae Young plays, knowing, like I said, look, he did take 19 shots last night. He's only shooting 38% on the year. So maybe if he hits a hot streak, maybe he starts, he has a week where he averages 30 plus. Okay, that's good that he's capable of doing that. But I don't think, in watching him, that has been his primary focus this year. And I think as a result, to me, I now look at the Hawks as a team, you've got to play more honestly, rather than just like, if you can control Trae Young, you're going to beat the Hawks. That's how it used to be. And that's how I used to feel. I don't necessarily feel that way anymore. I think they've got guys now that fit around him, who is an incredibly talented playmaker, great vision, great ability to deliver the ball. And some of the passes aren't easy for a guy his size. Some of the better facilitators in this league are bigger guys. And the reason is because they can see any pass on the court. Luka, LeBron, Jokic, those guys are big guys that can find all over the floor. Even a guy like Harden, who's 6'6" still, it's harder for Trae Young. So the fact that, that he even does it at the level he does is pretty remarkable. But now I think it's beneficial to their team that that's not his first thought process every trip up the floor.
Yeah. And there's two things that this team does. So we talk about, having a lot of good guards or point guards or just passers, guys that can pass and do things. One of the benefits of that is you can get out in transition. And they had 30 fast break points last night. The Bucks, I don't want to get hit with pillow talk here, but the Bucks were on a second night of a back-to-back a little bit.
Oh my God.
I'm not giving him an excuse.
He brought his own pillow to the pillow party by bringing it up. Oh my God.
I'm just stating the facts that it was a second night of a back-to-back.
Back-to-back. A team that hot, you can't pick and choose when you say back-to-back when they're playing that well. The Bucks have been on fire. Can't throw that out. I don't want to hear it.
Well, one thing the Bucks have been better at recently was not getting beat in transition. And last night they get beat in transition quite a bit. I just didn't think they were, very motivated in transition, but the Hawks punish you because they have so many guys that can bring the ball up the court. And Jalen Johnson, as a forward, there were a lot of times when he gets the rebound and brings it up where the defense is automatically scrambled. And he's just so good at, like you said, those strides where he's going fast, but it looks so in control. And they were able to play in transition. So I think they're a very good transition team, but you can't play in transition unless you get stops. And you said it, Legs. They're playing defense for the first time in the Trae Young era. They find themselves in the top half in defensive rating. I don't know if that's going to stick, but again, I think it's a lot of smart players. Clint Capella does a great job protecting the rim. They have smart players and their defense now is adequate. It's their league average defense, which is in and of itself impressive.
Well, here's the main reason. You talk about Capella, and he's important as your anchor, but you got Risa Shea, Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, and Okongwu. You're talking about 4 different guys, basically the same size.
Yeah.
And so that means, and they're all athletic and they have great lateral movement. So there's not a situation where they're really going to find themselves in a mismatch. Teams play smaller lineups anyway. There are times you got all 4 of those guys on the court at the same time. Yep. They've played smaller lineups before where they've gone that route. And you talk about just, man, the coach's dream defensively, that's just all switchability. And you're not worried about getting compromised unless it's Trae Young, potentially getting caught in some sort of a bad matchup and you're going to flood to him and provide help for him. But the rest of those guys, they can pick up anybody in transition. There's no cross matchup problems where you find yourself imbalanced because the wrong guys end up in the wrong places in transition. That's not a problem for them. Very impressed with Risa Shea last night, man. I like the way he plays. He's 19 years old. He's out there starting for them, very active at both ends of the floor. He's got a positive, upbeat vibe about him, very confident. I was just impressed, man. I was impressed with what I was watching last night. And I thought the Bucks' inability to really run what they wanted to run against them was very telling.
I love the point about switching because especially in transition, that matters. I mean, there are teams that are a little bit more traditional in the NBA where like I think about this with Denver a lot. They're so good at generating switches and punishing you on the offensive end. But every time you miss,
DeAndre Hunter, sorry, someone mentioned it. You're right. That's another guy. Like that's 5 guys. Yep. And DeAndre Hunter, he's a guy that made his bones playing defense. His whole reputation was a defensive stopper coming into the league. He's been playing really well offensively lately for them, by the way. But I'm sorry to cut you off. That's 5 guys I mentioned that have that ability to do that all over the floor, man. That is quite a luxury that not a lot of teams have.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Hunter because he's on a little bit of a heater. And this is, I look at this 5-game win streak and I'm okay. Let me look at the stats. Who's really been standing out? He's shooting 48.5% from 3. He's averaging, I think, 22 points a game over this stretch. He's a huge X factor for him. I'm not super high on DeAndre Hunter. And most of the time when people are talking about Hunter, he's the trade piece or he's one of the trade pieces. When you look at the Hawks and say, okay, what are they going to do? How are they going to move? They got some guys they can sell off and it's always Hunter. But him playing well is a large part of what's making this run happen is that he's fitting into it. And you look last night, we've talked about this a lot. Benches in the NBA, there's only a handful of teams that can go to their bench and be confident. Milwaukee is not one. But last night, Hunter, Bogdanovich, Okongwu off the bench, they dominated their minutes when they were on the court, and the depth mattered. Hunter's a big piece of that, so I'm glad you brought him up.
And I want to just follow up on him because he's a guy, I think that he didn't really grow tremendously offensively, like when he got into this league, but he's been solid and he's a really good defender. He seems like all accounts, like a great teammate. He's had some problems staying healthy. The injury bug has gotten him just about every year of his career. And he went through it again this year and he missed a chunk of time. And he's been a starter pretty much from the beginning since he got to Atlanta. And now he comes back from the injury. And in the 10 games he's played since November 15th, he's had 6 20-point games. And he's coming off the bench. And this team, look, you got Trey, and every night he's a dual threat. There's going to be some nights he goes off as a scorer. We just talked about it. He's really good and impactful when he's that dual threat doing both. Maybe the numbers aren't as big as a scorer. His shot attempts down a little bit. They're better off. But some of these other guys are going to be a little bit inconsistent. So if you can get consistent scoring out of any of those guys besides Jalen Johnson, then that's all you really need to be in every game because their defense is going to be good enough now to keep them in games. And Deandre Hunter has probably been the most consistent of that entire group that I mentioned since he came back from injury. And now he's coming off the bench. And maybe eventually he works his way back into the starting lineup. We'll see how that plays out. But right now he seems to be very comfortable. He's accepted what's going on. And he's given them that scoring punch that they need on a nightly basis to go along with this, this defense that's much improved.
So you look at them right now, they sit at the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. They're basically tied with the Bucks in the 5-6 range. They've won 5 in a row, tied with the Dallas Mavericks for the longest win streak. I'm not saying we're taking this team seriously. I mean, they're not going to, I don't think anywhere close to being a contender, but when you look at, this roster and where it's at, what do you think they need? Are they on their way now and they're getting, and there's a piece or two away from them being complete? And if so, what is that piece?
Probably another big. I mean, I think they need another big that can defend, protect the rim, run the floor, slash. I mean, those guys that the elite ones are obviously on teams already, but you just look at basically what they're putting out there to put in a lot of these similar sized wings around Trae Young. I think they could use another guy that's a big body in the middle. That could help them on the offensive glass. That could just be a guy you don't have to run stuff for, that can defend, high energy type of player. Even at Boston with Cueto, like what they're getting out of him, like a guy like that to come in. And when Capella's off the floor, you could stay big if you want to and give you some additional offensive rebounding, keep balls alive, protect the rim, eat up some fouls, be a little bit of a physical player in the paint. That's probably it because they've got a stable of guys in that 6'7" to 6'9" range that are kind of versatile guys, none of which right now are elite offensively. I think Jalen Johnson has a chance to get there. The rest of those guys are never going to be elite offensive players, but they're good enough around a couple of star offensive players to be able to give them a chance. Look, I look at the Eastern Conference right now. I don't think anybody, like you said, they're not going to contend. Do you think there's a shot that the Atlanta Hawks can finish as high as 4 or 5 in the East right now? They are in the 6th spot. Yeah. So you're talking, we expect Cleveland, Boston. I think we all expect Orlando, New York to all finish higher. So that means potentially that 5 spot is there for Atlanta. You got Atlanta, Milwaukee. The Heat are at 500. They don't impress me at all. The Pacers is really shocking to me what's going on with the Pacers right now.
They're sad, man.
Teams, maybe Philly gets interesting at some point. Who knows? We're just kind of got them on ice right now, just waiting to see. They're 5-15. We know that's not what they are when they're fully healthy. So let's see what happens with them. But I'm looking at the Eastern Conference and I'm going, man, Atlanta actually might have a shot to finish around 5th as their ceiling. And that's pretty incredible going into the year because I didn't have them as a team that could avoid the play-in on the north side of the play-in. I didn't think that would happen.
I think the 7 teams in the top, I mean, you count Miami, who got a big win last night. You count those teams, and I think that there's a break after that when you get to your Brooklyns, your Chicago, Indiana, Detroit, all those teams.
But Atlanta and Philly have runs in them?
Man, Philly, I mean, what are we talking about right now? You know what I mean? Like, this is so hypothetical. We haven't even seen the team. Can they get healthy? So they're a team I put to the side because who knows what to make of that group. But Indiana, we're 20 games into this season, and they still look like this. At some point, you look at it and go, it's not necessarily, it's not health. It's not this or that. Indiana's the team that I'm starting to put on on watch of, well, we're 20 games in and we haven't seen it. I'm just not sure that they are the team we thought they were.
Well, when we get after the through the Emirates Cup and the league is back to full action, we're going to have to do a deep dive on them at some point, probably another 4 or 5 games, because to me, I understand things broke their way last year to get to the conference finals. I mean, a lot of injuries occurred that enabled them to do that and survive that. But at the end of the day, that's still a team that, for the most part, they've had pretty good health. And Tyrese Halliburton, to me, is the guy that I look at and go, is he just not what we thought? Like, we're
20 games
off on Halliburton, and I think he sets the tone for their entire team. Yeah. And he's had just a incredibly disappointing season overall. So anyway, we'll do Indiana another day, but I'm looking at the rest of the conference, and I look at who's positioned now. I don't know that Miami is much better than a 500 team.
Yeah.
Let's say they're a 44-38 team when it's all said and done. And so you got them, Atlanta, Milwaukee. To me, there's your 5 through 7.
Yep.
And that's going to play out that way, one way or another. And Atlanta has a chance potentially to get as high as 5 when it's all said and done.
I hope they keep it going, because I think this team is pretty interesting. Like you said, they just have a fun style of basketball, and I like the different styles.
Me, Adam, I give you credit, man. You said you liked them before the season. I didn't like them at all. I like them more than I did, and I'm going to continue to be watching them now, man. So,
my faith wavered early.
You got your guys, and then you got your team.
It's the whole league. I just claim everybody, so I'm never wrong. If we give the Bucks a little bit of comment here, I mean, I always hate this legs. There's 30 teams in the NBA. We got to talk about all of them. We try to break it up. The Bucks have been on this run 7 games in a row. We've given them a little bit of love over there, but my thought was we were going to talk about them today, and of course it's coming in on a loss. But do you have any notes about them more broad over this run that they've been on, or even just notes from last night on this Milwaukee team?
One thing I'll say about Milwaukee, and it context really does matter. You have to look at who they've beaten this year.
Yeah.
It matters. I'm sorry. Look, don't get me wrong. It starts with winning games. Like at some point, like the start they had, they're sitting there at 2-8 after they lost to the Celtics with Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard on your roster. Okay. You're sitting there just scratching heads. It looked like, man, this thing's about to fall apart. And then they get hot. They have now won 9 out of 11, but it does matter who you're beating. And in that stretch, Toronto, Detroit improved, but still bottom feeder.
2 wins.
Houston, good win. 1-point win against Houston, good win. Chicago, mediocre. Indiana, we just talked about it, very disappointing. Charlotte bad. Talented, but wild. Like, if you just show up and play with discipline, you'll take care of them. The Heat, they beat them by 3. That's a tough win. You're always going to have to play hard against the Heat, but they're not. You don't have to worry about a lot of firepower unless you're the Lakers last night, which we're going to get into in a second. Washington, Detroit. I mean, think about that list, and it does matter. So you have to put it in context who they're beating. It starts with beating the teams you're supposed to, and then if you could continue to make strides. Now, can you start to beat some of these other teams that potentially have deeper playoff runs in them? That remains to be seen. They've got some coming up. Boston on Friday, Brooklyn on Sunday, who's not an easy game to play.
Right there.
Orlando on Tuesday. Okay, and then you got, after the Emirates Cup, Cleveland. So 3 out of the next 4 are 3 of the best 4 teams in the Eastern Conference. You want a real barometer for the Bucks? Yeah. Let's wait until they get through that stretch, which is going to be closer to Christmas.
And by the way, this game on Friday at Boston should be the return of Khris Middleton. And I mean, if we're really talking about the Bucks, because I'm with you, you go through their schedule. What is their best win of the year? They beat Houston by 1 point. Houston on the second night of a back-to-back. Their second best win of the year is probably either Miami or Chicago. Not exactly an impressive win you're like, telling the world about. So they don't have big wins. But Middleton coming back, this team is really thin. This is part of it, is I think they're going to be inconsistent because you can count on about 4 guys every night. Then after that, you really don't know what you're going to get. Middleton, you hope, can ramp up towards being another guy. Obviously, we know how good he can be at his absolute best. We don't know how good he can be right now. But he should give them something. So what are you looking for? Obviously, think about a coming back game, Legs. You miss all this time and you come back at Boston. That's a tough debut. But what do you think he can give them? And do you have big expectations for his return?
I not as much. Look, Khris Middleton, one of those guys. He was one of my favorite players for a long time because his consistency and efficiency. He did it every night, and he also played both ends of the floor. I just loved him as a role player, as your third best guy. I thought, man, that's pretty darn good if that's your third best player. Because, and you saw the year that they won it, like his ability then to become your primary guy. A lot of times they put the ball in Khris Middleton's hand during that run when they needed something big and go ball screen with him as your ball handler. And they got something good out of that. Great mid-range jump shooter, which every offense needs. Not something that they have a lot of with the Bucks roster. So he gives them that. It's a hole in their offense. Question is going to be, though, do you expect him really to stay back? Come back, stay back, and be really good from this point on. I'm very curious to see. I hope so, because I love the guy. I love his demeanor. I just love his stoicism. He's unflappable, same demeanor every single night. I love that kind of player. Very, very good offensive player in this league for a long time. It's just been a while since we've seen it at that level where it's consistently every night, something you're counting on. I hope they get that, because that would make the Bucks significantly more interesting to me than what they have right now.
Well, we're going to talk about them again later on in the show when we get to the NBA Cup, because there's some teams that could really use a boost from it, and Milwaukee is one of those teams. This could be a thing that turns around their season and propels them going forward. So I think they'll be a team that's going to be interesting in the Cup. Let's take a break. On the other side, we're going to talk about the Los Angeles Lakers and the Miami Heat, but really the Lakers, who just had an ultimate stinker last night. And then, of course, later in the show, we'll look at the Cup and all of the different storylines now in the Cup. That should get interesting. But first, get ready to tackle the NFL action this weekend with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com/AllNBA to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com/AllNBA. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older and present in Colorado. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. And if you have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-522-4700. Let's also talk about goals for a minute. How are you tracking with the ones you set for your business earlier this year? This is the time, December, to kind of reflect on last year and plan ahead. Do you know why you haven't hit them yet? That's your goals, of course. You have year-end goals. Constant Contact has what it takes to help you meet them faster. No matter how experienced you are with digital marketing, Constant Contact has the tools to make your marketing run smoother. Sell more, raise more, and build more genuine relationships with your audience with Constant Contact's suite of digital marketing tools, all made to fast-track your success. Tap email marketing that helps you create and send the perfect email to every customer. Own the smartphone by adding texting to your marketing strategy. Connect with over 2 billion people on social media with an all-in-one tool for posting and sharing, and sell more online in less time with Constant Contact's powerful e-commerce tools. Get all the automation, integration, and reporting tools that get your marketing running seamlessly, and join the thousands of businesses and millions of people who trust Constant Contact with their marketing success. Time to put the go in your 2024 business goals with email, social, SMS, and customized marketing campaigns built for you in just a few clicks. Ready, set, go to ConstantContact.com/allcity and start your free trial today. That's ConstantContact.com/ALLCITY for your free trial. All right, back here, segment 2, me and Tim Legler. We're doing this live 4 times a week, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Join us everywhere. You can also download the podcast in any of your podcast apps, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get them. It always goes right to your inbox as soon as the show goes live. Legs, the Lakers, we're having a good run. It was a good run. About 14 games, impressive. You kind of wondered, what could they become? But something happened in the last 2 weeks. Something happened where it's not just that they're losing as they did last night to the Miami Heat. They're getting killed 134-93. And worse than that, Legs, the body language of this team does not look good. They were down 20 at the half, and there were guys moping. There just was not a lot of urgency. They didn't seem bothered by the fact that they were getting hammered. And you're kind of starting to get some negative comments out of the locker room, some a little awkwardness. What's going on already with the Lakers?
Man, I mean, listen, you're talking about 4 of their last 5 losses have been by a total of 122 points.
That's a lot of points.
And they had, and in addition to that, they had 2 close losses to Oklahoma City by 8, and they lost to Orlando by 1.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about those other ones, because they're good teams. Denver, Phoenix, they get blown out back-to-back by both those teams. At Minnesota, we expect to be kind of in the mix, but they've had a mediocre year to this point. And then the Miami Heat is the one where, okay, officially rock bottom. Rock bottom. And not because the Heat are an embarrassment. It's not the Wizards that beat them by 41 points.
Yeah,
okay.
It's
the Miami Heat. They're going to show up. They're going to fight. They're well coached, but they're offensively challenged. Now they're taking more threes than they have in the past, but they're a middle of the pack offensive team. Any metric you look at, that's what the Heat are. They set a franchise record for 3-point makes. They shoot over 50% in doing that. They have, I think they had a season high for most uncontested shots in a game. That really speaks to effort there.
That's what it is right there.
I mean, you think about this, summing that up, like more uncontested shots. And you're talking about a team, the Lakers, when you lose games and you get embarrassed a couple of times, a couple of things can happen. You either continue to stay in this negative dark cloud mindset, pouty, feeling sorry for yourself, caving at the first sign of adversity in a game. And that continues for a while until something happens. If it continues too long, something's going to happen right now. Does that mean the head coach in trouble? I don't think so. They just hired a guy. They gave him, I think, 5 years, if I recall. He had a new coaching experience. They knew coming in there was going to be some challenges associated with this. You're not bailing on JJ Redick, nor should you. This early, you bought into him knowing that there's a learning curve there for him. So you have to just bake that into the pie. You've got to give him time. So it's not going to happen there, but something has to give. The other thing that could happen, Adam, if a team's been blown out a few times in a short period of time and it's not going well defensively and the body language stinks, is you get fed up, disgusted, and you get ticked off, and you look in the mirror and you come out and you rally just from an effort standpoint and you turn this thing around. This was rock bottom for them. So now they got to figure out, where do they want to go from here? What's going to happen now? And by the way, we got this long break in the NBA season here coming up. And so there's a lot of time to just dwell on it. If you're the Lakers, you play at a red hot Atlanta team, which we just talked about on Friday night. That is not going to be an easy game. And that's a hard team to guard. Would not be shocked Atlanta wins that game. Then you come home, play Portland on Sunday. And then you play at Minnesota Friday the 13th. So you've got games are going to be spread out here for a little bit of time, except for these first 2. What's the response going to be? What's concerning to me is the stuff you're hearing out of the principal characters.
Yep.
Starting with JJ Redick, honestly, we don't feel like we're together right now. You don't want to be saying words like that as a head coach a quarter of the way into this, past a quarter away, almost a third of the way into the season. That's the last thing you want to be talking about. You can talk about all kinds of stuff. Guys not playing well. We didn't execute tonight. We got to be better in this area or this area. You don't want to say we're not together. Yeah. That to me is like, when you start talking in those terms, it really feels heavy in that locker room, on that bench, on the charter, just around the facility. It feels heavy right now for this group. And we're really going to see JJ's ability to find this team with his voice and let's do this together and figure this out together. You're going to find out a lot about how LeBron and AD feel about this group as well with their response to this, because their comments also, it sounds good, but do they believe it? That's the bottom line. What you say is one thing, what you believe is another thing. So they're not talking about, accountable, look at myself, look in the mirror, it's all me. Anthony Davis took credit, it's my fault, I got to play better. LeBron, I agree with everything JJ said. But do they actually believe that? And that's what we're going to find out here over the next few weeks, because I think their season is very much at a tipping point.
They sure don't look like it based on last night. Anthony Davis, 8 points in this game. He plays 31 minutes, shoots 3 of 14. So you talk about, like, you want to see how those guys respond. I feel like you're right. They have been some of the culprits to the bad body language and the low effort, low energy. And you got one of those from Anthony Davis last night. And that's part of what's so concerning about this team. But there was a good comment in the chat, I think from Mo's a little bit back, who's talking about JJ Redick. And I like this point. Has a very heavy spirit, it seems, in a lot of these. Even at the start of the year when they were winning well or playing really well and getting some wins, he has a very seriousness to him that I think coaches have to have a seriousness to him. But there's also moments when I think the coach can't be too heavy. And I almost wonder, I mean, you've been in locker rooms and you know JJ better than I do. I don't know him at all. I wonder if there's sometimes like, all right, my team's in a bad spot. I don't know if I can be this heavy right now. I've got to bring some levity. Finding that balance is tough for a coach, but I almost wonder if he's playing the same notes a lot so far this year.
You know, it's interesting. When I did their last game, I was out there for the Oklahoma City game. I talked to them before the game, and at that point, they were kind of still they were in the midst of this. They had gotten blown out back to back by Denver and Phoenix, and they're kind of trying to find themselves. And he said one of the decisions they made was no more shoot arounds. Like the rest of the year, we're not going with shoot arounds anymore. And then he was talking about, for some reason, the coaching staff kind of wanted that. And he seemed like reluctantly he was going to agree to that because he believed in it as a player. I didn't like him as a player. You know, I never missed one, but I didn't necessarily love getting up at 9 o'clock in the morning on the day of the game to go down to the arena and kill all that time in the car and at the facility when I should just be resting and mentally getting myself ready. So I wasn't big on it. I didn't need the extra shots because I did all that every day. So he loved it. He told me he loved it. He needed it. But he's giving in to like what he thinks the players and the coaching staff want. So that was like one thing. He also said like Dalton Connect, he had been starting, playing great. They won 4 out of 5. Then they put Cam Reddish back into the starting lineup.
Yeah, that was weird.
Right? And they lose a couple of games. And then that night he was starting him again. And he was like, yeah, I can't conceive of another situation where he doesn't start the rest of the year. We're just going to, shoot a lot of threes and outscore people. I guess, that's going to be more of our identity because he seemed frustrated with their defense. So like, you're right about JJ. Like
the heaviness.
For instance, let me ask you a question. Truthfully, how often, period, not to mention like a first-time head coach or early in the season, how often do you really ever hear coaches use the word embarrassing in the NBA? Yeah. Right? And even though they feel that way, a lot of times now, Michael Malone, you've been with a team for a while, you won a championship, and you come out and you lay a complete egg against the team. That's something, a word you would use. Like JJ, first time around, it's like, okay, man, we're in a tough stretch. I get it. We're struggling, but like it's such a long season and there's so many different chances to turn it around and get hot, and you still have 2 of the best players in the league on your team. It's almost like that is where like the pressure he's probably feeling from the scrutiny that everyone's staring at him over looking at this team right now, the way they're struggling, the way they're just not competitive in some of these games. And he wants to have a solution. He's not exactly sure right now what to say, what to do. And so he says something like that. And it's like, you don't hear that very often from NBA coaches. So I think he's kind of laid bare right now. He wears his emotions on his sleeve.
Yeah.
And James is a very intense guy. And I think when you're struggling, that can be something it can be maybe more difficult to pull out of because of your own tension and like toughness and fight and irritability with the way your team is playing, because you're under a lot of pressure, a lot of scrutiny, a lot of people doubting this whole situation. And now you've hit that rough patch here. And it is a serious rough patch. Very interesting now to watch at the Lakers' response to this. It's not JJ that's got to go out there and compete. They didn't compete last night. I watched probably half that game. That was a joke from an effort standpoint. So let's look at the film. Let's look in the mirror. It starts with that. Show up and play harder. And now let's see if we can figure this out and tighten up some of the things we need to do on both ends of the floor. But this is rock bottom for them on what's happened with them this year. They've got to dig themselves out. And I'm curious, like you, Adam, like everybody else, what is the response going to be from this team going forward?
I think coaching in the NBA is one of the toughest jobs on earth. Not one of the toughest sports jobs, one of the toughest jobs, because it's a strategic job. You got to be on top of everything. but it's also a leadership job. It's a personalities job. It's a connection job. It's just so many things. And you have to always know what's needed of me. Is my strategic brain needed? My emotional IQ brain needed? It's always something. And I just think it's a really tough job. 20 games in, and JJ Redick definitely feeling the pressure right now.
I just want to say, last point before we move on to the cup, about JJ. Look, I know this guy really well. I've worked with him a lot over the last couple of years. I know he's got the mind for it. I know that he has this in him to do this. This was a very difficult bite to take for your first job.
As hard as it gets.
I mean, really, honestly, the name on the front plus the names on the back.
Yeah.
Right. Add all that up. Add all of that up. And you got a team that just because of the brand and the names on the back, a couple of those jerseys, people have a delusion that you're a contender and expect you to contend. And and at no point have we said we thought the Lakers could win a championship or get to the finals. No, I don't think most people believe that, but the expectation on a nightly basis is always going to be there. There was no room to grow early for JJ. It was hit the ground running and win right now. Win right now with a roster that's got some flaws. Go ahead.
A lot of flaws.
So look, I in no way, shape, or form am I passing judgment on can JJ coach in the NBA or can he not? Way too early to decide that, way too small of a sample size. You've got to be able to give the guy the benefit of the doubt to fight through difficult patches. He's in one right now in one of the most difficult jobs you could possibly imagine to take as your first job. So it's harder than most to dig out of too. So let's just give the guy some grace and let's see what happens here going forward. We're not even at the halfway point in the season. The Lakers are going to be heard from again, but right now it's a bad situation out there, man. And you can tell the air is heavy.
I don't know if we'll hear from him again, but we'll see if they steady the ship. The West is tough, man. Real quickly, because we have to mention them, they did play the Heat last night. Tyler Hero, 9 of 16 from 3. He's having a career year in points per game, a career year in 3-point percentage, career year in a couple other metrics, assists per game. He's having a really good game. And last night, 9 of 16 in the NBA is not easy to do. I guess maybe last night it was a little easier than most with the energy and effort they were giving on defense. But Tyler Hero's having a good year. Do you have a quick thought on him?
No, I do, man. Look, he's always been a really good player, but for whatever reason, it's all come together this year for them. And I think part of the reason is because it feels like Jimmy Butler's less of a requirement for them offensively, and that's probably opened some things up for Tyler Hero. And he's taken more of the reins offensively. He's not slotted in that other spot outside Jimmy Butler, and then to what extent Bam's going to touch the ball. Tyler Hero now is feeling free. I think did he have 7 threes in one quarter last night?
Is that what happened? 7 threes?
Yeah, I watched it, but I turned it off. And I thought I read that this morning in the recap. I thought he had 7 in one quarter. They make 24 as a team, over 50% from the field from the 3-point line. So every shot they took was a good shot. But yeah, I'm glad you brought him up. He deserves it. We haven't mentioned Tyler Hero all year, mainly because the Heat have been kind of, a team that hasn't been doing much. But he's had a very good year, his best as a pro. So he deserves a pat on the back.
Well, the stage is set for the NBA Cup. Last year, it was a great story. Teams like New Orleans, who ended up falling flat on their face later in the tournament, but they got an elevated moment there. Indiana obviously became darlings, and I think a lot of how we talk about the Pacers has to do with their run up to and through the Cup last year. And this year we have a mix of great teams and some up-and-comers. So pull it up real quick. We have the bracket here. If we take a look, you've got the Thunder and Mavericks going up against each other, an old classic. You got the Rockets and Warriors, which I think is a really fun matchup. The Bucks and Magic, and the Knicks and the Hawks. Just real quick, what's the best game of the first round of the NBA Cup, Legs?
Man, it's one of the two West, and it's a coin toss for me. I think either one of those games, but I'm gonna lean toward OKC Dallas. I mean, I think the winner of that game could win the whole thing.
Ooh.
And so that's really, and Dallas, give them credit because we haven't talked much about them lately. They've turned their season around with the way they're playing right now. Here's some interesting numbers, man. There's 8 teams up there. Put that graphic up there again, James, if you could. There's the graphic. So there's 8 teams listed. The 7 of those teams right now, the runs that they're in, whatever that is, their most recent best run in terms of wins and losses, 7 of those teams right now, Adam, are 60-11 in their last 71 games.
Wow,
And
it's
then
just a
you
hot teams, yeah.
and then you've got the Warriors. So
On a
they've
4-game
lost
win
5 in a
streak.
row. They've
I have
lost
5
5.
games.
I'm just looking at these teams. Milwaukee, 9 out of 11. Orlando, 13 out of 15. The Knicks,
Wow.
8 out of 10. Atlanta, 5 straight. OKC, 5 out of 6. Dallas, 9 out of 10. Houston, 12 out of 15. I mean, these aren't just hot streaks. These are like the best streaks these teams will have all year. The way they're playing right now going in. So it's no surprise that's who we end up with here. And then you got the Warriors who had that great start and they've lost 5 in a row. So they're the only team right now that's not trending super hot going
Yeah.
into this. But I think Dallas OKC is that could be just a classic first game. And the winner of that, I think, has a great shot to win the entire cup.
How weird is this? And I didn't realize it was just brought up in the chat. The Warriors and Rockets play tonight, not the cup. They play again next Tuesday, but they play a weird game tonight. I have to feel this is one of the things that the NBA Cup does is it almost becomes a mini playoff thing where that I have to imagine there's some form of game planning tonight's matchup where both teams have to be like, yeah, but we have to zig a little because we really want to win next week against each other. Do you think that that's going to have to happen?
So you're saying,
those two teams?
Yeah, you're saying it's kind of like, two teams see each other in like a preseason football game and they don't play anybody.
Yeah.
They don't run anything they normally run.
Basic package.
Here's the thing. Like, there's probably some truth to that, but at the same time, I just kind of feel like it's almost like if you really want to convey an air of confidence about your team, you show up and play. And I think that's what Houston is going to be. Like, we don't care. Go ahead.
They have less to hide, to be honest.
We're going to pull the curtain back and let you see everything we are, everything we run, and what we do. Go ahead and stop it. And go ahead and try to run your offense against us. And for Golden State right now, they just need a win. Period. End of story. Like, they just need a win.
Yeah,
and winning the game for Golden State is significantly more important than Houston, I believe, before this rematch in the Cup. I think it's going to give Golden State a little bit more like confidence right now that they need. They just need to feel good after a game right now heading into this thing. So I like all the matchups, though, by the way. I think
Me too.
I think Milwaukee, Orlando could be unbelievably entertaining. Yeah. And then, of course, we just talked about Atlanta, the way they're playing right now against the Knicks. Ultimately, I would say I favor the Knicks in the Eastern bracket.
Okay.
And the winner of OKC Dallas. And I'm not sure, man. I really don't know I can predict that game. Who's going to win that game? I probably would lean toward Dallas to win that game and maybe set up a Dallas-Knick final, but it could be OKC and the Knicks.
I think my pick is, I mean, and honestly, this is so tough. It's a single elimination. Anything can happen, but that was my pick as well. Knicks versus Mavs. And I had the Mavs winning it. The Mavs have the metrics on the Mavs this year are really good. They lost a bunch of close games. Their record isn't quite with their point differential, but you get Luka back. And they got a huge win, by the way, 2 nights ago against Memphis, where they had to come back. It was kind of a miracle win to come back in the last 5 minutes and dominate the clutch the way that they did. I'm just buying them. I would not be surprised if they, we're talking about the Mavs a week from now, and they're the hottest team in basketball. I just think they're a bit of a sleeping giant.
Look, one thing that's changed, and he had a little bit of a break with an injury, had some time off. And fortunately for him, they were still winning some games while he was out. When Luka came back, though, I mean, we harped a lot on, I know I did, probably more than anybody, certainly more than you maybe, about his shooting, holding them back early in the year. Hard when a player has that kind of usage and he's just not shooting well night in, night out. The step back 3 was just not there for him, and it's a big weapon for him. It sets up a lot for their team. It's a big hammer shot that he can get off whenever he wants. It ends runs by other teams. It ends games sometimes. He couldn't buy that shot. And you look at the last 2 games since he's come back, 15 for 24 and 11 for 22, 9 for 19 from the 3. So whatever went on while he was out, maybe it's just simply a matter of he feels better physically and he's fresher because he got a little bit of time off. And I thought started the year, I don't think he was in great shape. And that meant your legs are going to be more sore, fatigued, tired, less like separation and balance and juice. Well, okay, and on top of it, some nagging injuries, he dealt with the injuries and he came back. And now that initial sort of break-in phase that he had, which was his training camp, I felt like the first 3 weeks of the season, now he's past that point of the muscle soreness, and now he feels like mid-season form. And you noticed it. It's not a coincidence, man. The guy came out and shot the ball the way he has the last couple of games. And when he shoots it like that, Dallas, again, looks like a team that can get back to the finals. And that's the way they're playing right now. And that's why I said I lean toward them winning the OKC game, beating the winner of Houston Golden State. And then I think the Knicks are the team that comes out of the East. But I don't know what you think. Do you think the Knicks are going to win the East? And if not, who do you like?
I think the Knicks Mavs was my pick, and I have Mavs winning it all. But if you're going the same direction, I might have to zig and take my Rockets and my Hawks and just double down and just stick with my preseason teams. But Mavs,
that's your dream scenario, isn't it? Like Tari Eason and Dyson Daniels head to head in the Emirates Cup final.
You don't want to be on the show if that's the matchup. I'm telling you, you're going to call a sick day. I can already tell it. Lex is like, hey, I'm not feeling too good. I'm going to need a sub. I don't think I can do that.
Well, hey, look, it could be OKC and your boy Hartenstein, though.
Man, so true.
How many of your guys are in the cup? You got a lot of guys in the cup.
The cup is kind of a showcase of my guys. I'm not going to lie.
Hartenstein, you got Quentin Grimes.
Got Grimes. I got Franz.
You got Easton, Daniels.
I got Tari. So many.
I don't think you got any guys on the Bucks. Oh, no. Franz Wagner, which is a joke.
Wagner's my guy. Come on,
I'll give him to you. Oh, well, let a guy get the all-star. Let a guy get the all-star form and then claim him. My goodness.
Let me ask.
Do you have any guys on the Warriors?
I don't. Well, I mean, a former guy, Gary Payton II, was one of my guys back in the day. But
do you have any guys on the Knicks?
I don't have any guys on the Knicks. I don't have nobody that's my guy.
Right, but you got plenty of guys in
got
this.
A lot of guys.
It'll definitely be a good chance that one of those guys at least is in the Emirates Cup final.
It's so true. I just know how to pick them, man. I don't know why you're upset. I know how to pick them, Legs. Real quick. So last year, the Pacers did benefit from a run here. It launched Halliburton onto the main stage. It launched the Pacers onto the main stage, really propelled them. If you look at a team, what team do you think would benefit the most from a good cup run? We'll do players in a second, but first, what team?
I'll give you three quick ones and I'll pick one of the three. I think Orlando, Atlanta, and Houston, the most to benefit from it. Possibly the Bucks too, because I don't think anyone's buying into the Bucks. And you win 3 games against 3 good teams in a row. Maybe you feel differently about yourself, particularly if you end up beating a team like Dallas or OKC in the final. That might actually convince more people they're legit. But I'm taking them out of it for now. I'm going with teams that haven't really done anything collectively. I mean, the Bucks did just win a championship recently. So I'm going to go with these other teams: Orlando, Atlanta, Houston. And of those 3, I'm going to go with Houston.
It's a great pick.
I think Houston, right? Because they've already gotten a lot of love and attention. They've gotten a number 2. A lot of people weren't paying a lot of attention to them. And now you look up and go, wow, Houston's 2 in the West. And then you watch them one time and go, wow, that's impressive. But now to make a run where you got to go through, Golden State, who's legitimately good again, then you'd have to beat either OKC or Dallas. And then you get whoever, Knicks potentially. You make a 3-game run like that on top of the start you've already had. To me, Houston is a team that could really, put the hammer down, pound the gavel that they're in this thing too. And that's why I would go with them first.
I think Houston and Orlando are the right picks there. You mentioned the Hawks. If the Hawks won this, I don't think anybody would be buying the Hawks. It'd be, oh, that's a nice run, good story. But the Magic and Rockets are 2 teams, number 2 and number 3 in each conference, that are not being taken seriously as contenders or anything. But you run through that tournament and win it, teams might say, fans might look around and say, okay, maybe this team is better than we thought or a little bit more advanced than we thought. But I think my answer is actually going to be the Knicks for that exact same reason. The Knicks did not start well. All the conversation was about, is that trade actually bad for them? Did it hurt? They find themselves right now at 13-8 in the 4 seed in the East. We're not really talking about them as in that tier of the Cleveland and the Boston. But again, if they run through this, they've been hot lately. If they run through this and get the cup, I think it elevates them back to saying, okay, they're in that mix with those good teams in the East and they could beat them. So I think they're the team that stands the most to gain collectively, because we'll talk about them differently at the end. What
I
about
like that.
players?
And I like that a lot. And I think also there's another way to look at this, Adam, and then we'll finish up quickly here is players. Now,
Yeah.
and there's two types of players that we're talking about. One is the guys that are already sort of like all league caliber guys. Like,
Yeah.
could a 3-game run through this with as much attention as you get during this? And last year we saw how much attention the Emirates Cup got and people hone in. Does that sort of, not that it's going to win you an MVP, but does it at least sort of cement you in that conversation the rest of the year? And now if your team wins enough
Yeah.
games, and because we don't expect any of the guys we're talking about in that category, Brunson, Antetokounmpo, Shea, Luka.
Yeah.
We're not expecting any of those guys to not be great because they're going to be. But like, does this sort of it's just like another thing that the voter has in his head when it comes
100%.
time to vote if it's close? The other caliber player are the guys that we think can, hey man, we've talked about. They're nice younger guys. Now, wow, you go through a 3-game run where you're the best player in this thing, like Franz Wagner or Şengün or Jalen Johnson. Like, you're one of those guys, and you play out of your mind for 3 games and win this thing. Now that can elevate you a whole nother rung or two in the ladder in the terms of way we look at you in your pecking order in the league. So players have a lot to gain from this as well.
The only name, I agree with all the names that you just mentioned. The only one I would add is Karl Anthony Towns, who, really good player. I think a lot of people think he's a good player, but this would be a nice feather in his cap. If he can be the best player for 3 rounds of this and get a title, again, it might just make us look at the Knicks a little bit differently and even Cat a little bit differently. All right, we have a bunch of super chats. We got to get out of here quick, but we do have a bunch of super chats. So, James, what do we got here? Brandon says, Jamal Murray is one of my favorite players, but as a Nuggets fan, I am frustrated that he is the only top 8 Nugget performing below expectations. It's kind of true. Brown, Jokic, MPJ, Westbrook, everyone's exceeded, but not Jamal. I'm with you. I'm a little concerned. I know, Legs, I know you're a little concerned as well.
Yeah, because I think, he's got so much talent, but it's like at some point enough time goes by without seeing the consistency with which he used to play when they're at their best. And yeah, I agree. It is concerning. And let me ask you, nobody knows them better than you do. Is he going to find that again?
I think the team is I talked to some guys with the team over the weekend, earlier this week, and I know the team is still confident. Oh, he'll be there. He'll get it together. We could see it coming, but I'm with you, man. Even if he gets it together, the Nuggets are not deep enough to carry him for another 2 months. He needs to help contribute to carrying this team to March and April. So I'm worried, man. I'm concerned. It's been a while. What else we got? Brandon also says, I got to ask, do you think Goga Bitadze or some other Magic center gets moved? And if so, where to? If you asked me this question in the offseason, I would have said yes. But Goga's playing too well, man.
Yeah,
I think Wendell in some ways is more expendable. Goga's been phenomenal there.
Super impressive for them. I agree with you. And you've noticed them even more with Banchero out. So, yeah. I agree. I love the way that he's played.
Can't trade him, to be honest with you. I think he's too good. Carlos Hernandez says, I have always liked Quinn Snyder because of his style of play, almost European-like. But do y'all think he's been an underrated coach? I'll let you take this one.
I don't know. I think he's been rated appropriately. I think he's been a solid coach in this league. I don't think people necessarily put him in that top 5 category, top 8 category, but right below that most of his career. And I think that he was what I think this group needed, particularly at the time he got the job. And I think it's coming together for him. I like Quinn. I like his intensity. He seems to be very popular with his team. And he's got some tools to work with. There's a lot of growth that's potentially there for this team. And there are a lot of teams in this league we look at and say, okay, they're a good team. Who's going to get better out of that group? You kind of know what they are. Atlanta, as much as any, I think has a lot of room for growth across the board with so many different guys. They're going to be interesting to watch next couple of years.
Yep. Next one. Christoph says, Franz made Lakers sad and Jokic stomped on them. It's true, man. Franz broke it. It started there with that Franz buzzer beater. And then the Nuggets beat him as they always beat him, and they've been spiraling since. What else we got? Justin of the Wild says, new NBA fan here. 3 historic games I should watch. Oh, I like this. All-time historic games, Legs, that a new fan should watch. This is a great question.
Oh, man. Well, yeah, it's just it's
right on the
I
spot.
love the question, but it's just that's too short a notice. We should actually We should actually take this question and
maybe
who's
tomorrow.
that from? Justin of the Wild.
Yeah.
Stay with us every day. We're going to revisit this because I want more
Maybe
time. I don't want
tomorrow.
to just throw something off the top of my head because I know I'm going to come up with something better.
Let's do this tomorrow. We'll each come up with 3 games that you must watch if you're becoming an NBA fan. Maybe
You're
we'll even
saying,
expand it to
all
5.
right, so the context is you've never seen an NBA game before and you kind of want to know what it is?
Yeah, the history of the game. Like, let's show you. This is what basketball can be. You know, This is the game. I love it. Those are great questions. Anything else? That does it. All right. Great stuff today. We are back again tomorrow, rounding out the show. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us today. Make sure you throw us a like. Leave us a comment below. Let us know who you think is winning in the NBA Cup, who has the most to gain, player and team. I think those are interesting questions, and I'd love to see your responses. Hit that like button for us on the way out. We'll see you tomorrow.
Y'all silly like the mayor.